So tonight's session, just like the last session, is going to be me giving you a little bit of an introduction to the topic. And then I'm going to guide us all through an exercise, which will be a guided visualization that you can just do in your own space. But also you can have the video, obviously, and you can go back and do it again at a different time and maybe in a different way. So each resource session is one of the central pillars of systemic constellations. And these sessions are deliberately designed so that you can be in your own space, you can do this in your own time. There is no need to discuss or debrief afterwards, but we have our WhatsApp group if people want to share anything afterwards. And if you're watching this and you don't know about the WhatsApp group, then ask the person who sent you the video to point you in the right direction. And if you want to join us, you're very welcome. So just like last time, the content is from my kind of favorite writers on the topic of constellations, my teachers, my learnings, and really what has come out of the last kind of 5 or so years of constellating. And if you're watching this and you don't actually have any knowledge of constellations and you want to know more, then let us know. We've got other videos that explain the technique, but you can actually just carry on with this video because it is designed for people who don't know anything about constellating as well. So let's get on to the topic. Tonight's topic is belonging. So this is one of the orders of constellations. And that's what Bert Hellinger, who's the founder of Constellation, called them. They're like the founding principles of a healthy system. So in the videos to come, we'll be talking about the different orders, but this evening we're going to focus on the order of belonging. And I think if you've already watched the video on agreeing, it probably won't surprise you to hear that in the world of constellating, the order of belonging suggests that everyone belongs. It's like a radical belonging, whether we feel like we belong or not to our family system, we belong. So one of my favourite writers on constellations, a guy called Berthold Ulsamer, he writes this description of the order of belonging. Every member of the family belongs equally to the family and is respected in the same way, regardless of any personal qualities or particular fate, which I think kind of rings true, right? But then he goes on to say, this belonging is independent of whether they are talented or, in his words, feeble-minded or normal, in quotations, whether they are handicapped or mentally ill, whether they have died at an early age or committed suicide. Every person belongs equally. So tonight is about letting that sink in, really. That the natural orders of a healthy system require that everybody belongs equally. So you all belong, we all belong equally to our family systems. And that could be different to what we've actually experienced or what we think we've experienced. And it could also be different to what we've understood to be appropriate in other social and societal models of how families work. So there's suggestions that some family members belong and some don't for some reason. And that's quite common in often in our lived experiences. And constellations attends to that by resetting everybody's birthright of belonging to their family system. So belonging is the deepest human need, which is one of the reasons why I chose to do this video on it. It's so important. At birth, we innately learn the rules of belonging, because we're bonding to our family system as a matter of life and death. And we're pack animals. And if you imagine what it means to be considered slightly different or not being recognized by your pack, there would have been a time when that would have been life or death. So being able to learn really, really quickly what it means to fit into the family that you are born into is absolutely essential. And establishing that bond and then protecting that bond and that right to belong at all cost, which might be a cost to yourself or a cost to others, kind of makes sense when you see it through a lens of survival. But it's often turns into a way that we don't really want to live anymore. But it's good to remember like where that came from. When we want to interact with other systems, of course, the rules of belonging to our family system can start to feel a bit restrictive. But we've fully integrated them by the time we are starting to meet other family systems. And you might remember that as a little kid, that the way that things were done in your house was the way that things were done. And then you went around for tea at somebody else's house and suddenly things were done a bit different. And it's like, oh, like kind of exciting, but also a bit worrying. And basically, almost for the rest of our lives, we're deciding whether we risk the loyalty to our own family system by adapting our behaviour and rules of belonging in order to be allowed into another system, or whether we remain loyal to our family's rules of belonging and then risk not being accepted into other groups. And that's friends or work or communities. There's always a question of, am I willing to do something different to how I did things when I was young? And obviously, often we find lots of similarities between our family systems and other family systems, and that's great too. But we can become so committed, completely committed to the rules of belonging to our family, that being disloyal to these rules can be absolutely unbearable, even when we know it's actually okay. And in the world of constellating, we call the feeling of breaking our loyalty to the rule, the family of belonging, as experiencing guilt. And in the opposite way, we describe the act of remaining loyal to our family of origin as innocent. And so it can be said in the world of constellating that growth requires guilt. And that's a choice that we make time and time again in our lives. Sometimes that feeling of guilt can be excruciating, and sometimes it can be totally acceptable. So when I was writing this, there's so many examples that I could give, but I think the one that amused me and Kate the most was a particularly banal example of the rules of belonging to my own family system. And it happens when I hang out a pair of trousers that have just been washed on the washing line. And when I put trousers on the washing line, I peg it up by the bottom of the legs. And I didn't realise that this is a rule of belonging for me. And I didn't realise it until my husband would put the washing out and hang it trousers up the other way. And the feeling of compulsion to amend the situation that isn't causing any complication or at all is really gives me that insight into the fact that this obviously comes from somewhere a bit deeper. And I imagine that we all have these very simple examples. So even though I know it doesn't matter, in that moment, if I can pause and notice what's happening in my body and in my emotions, I can feel that hanging trousers on a washing line is something that my mum had a right way to do. And that in copying her, I was showing my ability to follow the orders that seemed necessary to belong and to be valued and to be respectful and avoid criticism and feel safe and take my place. If I can stay with that even longer, I can even connect to this feeling of devotion to what was taught to me, and that my mum taking the time she felt necessary to set me and my sister up for success in her own way. And that in this way, skills are handed down, and some, admittedly, more vital than others, because I've learnt that trousers will dry on a washing line no matter which way up you hang them. But it's the same mechanism for helping a family system become stronger and have more ability to survive to the point where it can pass these skills on to another generation. So I absolutely admit that there could be a day where if I'm feeling particularly stretched and under-resourced, just the conflict of how you hang trousers on a washing line could get to a point where it would emotionally mean that I would react in a way that I don't want to and would be completely unnecessary. And I know that that's true for all of us. There's those things that we just can't let go of. And that is because they were so important when we were really trying to belong to our family of origin. Another really quick example, which is from my teacher, Gay Donaldson, and it's more festive, is she would ask us as a group of constellators whether we would think that decorating a Christmas tree should be done in a kind of pristine color schemed art piece by adults who are creating it, or whether it should just be a joyful, chaotic mess done by the kids. And if you get two new families blending together, and there's one family that do it one way and another that do it another way, that's when it can be difficult. It isn't important. We know it's not important, but it also really is important. So it's just about keeping that wider context for all of these things. There's so many examples on how families do things differently and how people become committed to that way of doing things, whether you have the dog on the bed or not, whether you let your kids go out and play in the dirt and get filthy, or you don't do that, or whether you say that it's dinner in the evening or tea in the evening or supper in the evening. Like, these are things that are part of using the right language and using the right behavior to show that you are that you belong in a system. And this goes even further when we talk about things like sport teams or politics. So it really is a massive topic that impacts how we interact with different groups throughout our lives. Where our need to belong to our family of origin was not quite met in a healthy way when we were young, for lots of reasons, it can really lead to a lifetime's striving for confirmation of belonging to other systems. And the important thing to dwell on with constellations is that the only place that we can really truly belong forever is our family of origin. Our seeking of belonging to other systems can only ever be temporary because they are not our family of origin. So we see this when people might give to more than they have to give, and especially working excessively hard to the point of exhaustion. Like, the people searching for a justification of belonging to a work system or a different or a community system, subconsciously persisting with actions that make us unhappy, I think is another kind of show that this is probably seeking out belonging. Um, and it might mean such a deep devotion is created to another group that you're willing to commit or allow unkind or even harmful acts to yourself or to others just to attempt to maintain a sense of belonging that you didn't feel was established sufficiently when you were in your own family of belonging. So this is why we really attend to it in constellations, because if it isn't attended to, it can just show itself in so many different ways. So understanding our innate need to belong and how that can impact us in our new systems is essential for giving us the insight to check our opinions or our decisions, our reactions, our boundaries. With time and reflection, we can notice when we're reacting from a need to protect our belonging, and we can pause and check if that reaction is what we really want for ourselves and others. Attending to our birthright to belong to our family system, no matter what our lived experience was, even as adults, can bring spaciousness and resilience, capacity, calm, and it can provide for us everything we need to be more choiceful. So that leads us on to the guided visualization that we're going to do this evening. And it is very specifically intended to reconnect us all with the truth that we belong to our family system. And that absolutely might not be how it felt when we lived through it. But no matter how it felt to be in that system, it is where we belong. And not accepting the belonging or not allowing the belonging is likely to cause challenges in life that show up in lots of ways. So just before we go into the visualization, obviously everybody's family system will be completely different. So a lot of my guidance will try to offer as many options as possible. The the visualization is about seeing your family system and taking your place in it. And I will remind you throughout the exercise that this is your exercise and this is your work and this is your visualization. And for lots of us, the idea of stepping into our family system might not be something that we cherish the idea of. And so I will be constantly reminding you that it is something that you can turn the colour down on as if you were looking at it on a screen, or you can make it softer in focus. There'll be lots of ways that you choose precisely how you interact with this. And it's a calming exercise that's done with a lot of control. So we're going to do it as a meditation. So if you want to get comfortable, make sure you're warm enough and in a place where you can just sit for maybe the next kind of 20 minutes without having to shuffle around too much. And as I said, this is something that is going to provide you with an opportunity to step into your system and belong there. And how that happens for you will be different to how that happens to others, but you control it. So just allow yourself to come into a quiet and calm and peaceful place where the day just drifts off and you can just focus on your inner world. Take some time for yourself. And as you become more calm and more settled, set the intention to do the work that gives you what you need, and just that tonight. I want you to imagine that you're walking through the most amazing woods on the most glorious day. A chance to remember what it was like when we had sunny days and the sun coming through the wood, and you following a lovely path that is nice and easy to follow. It's a perfect temperature. It's the perfect day. And as the path takes you into these beautiful woods, you notice ahead of you is a clearing. And you just pause so that you can observe it from afar. And you notice that this big clearing in the woods is full of your family. Your whole family are already there. Just for this moment, everybody has shown up, and you can see that there are people that you know, and you can see that there are people, ancestors that you never met. And even from this distance, you can tell that it is calm and that everybody is relaxed and happy to be there. As you get a bit closer, you notice that every person has got a specific spot to stand on. And that maybe it's just for this exercise, but they're all standing on their right spot. And you can just sense that they're perfectly happy to just hang out there, enjoying the woods. And because this is your exercise and your work, you can choose just how many people are there, how many generations it goes back. And you notice that you can also turn down the vision of your family if you want to. Maybe those family members are really fully present tonight. Maybe they're really lightly present. just like holograms of themselves, just enough for you to see whether they all fit. But that's your choice, how much, how bright or how soft you want this image of your family to be tonight. Still looking at your family in this clearing, you notice that everybody has their backs to you and that they're all facing forward in the same direction away from you. And as you come around the side of the clearing, you notice that there is an order to this family system, that you don't need to put anybody in the right place. They've all done that themselves. The older generations are at the back and the younger ones are in front of them. Those that are parents stand behind their children. Those that are in relationships or married stand together with their partner. The siblings stand in an order with the eldest on the right-hand side running down to the youngest on the left. Everybody is right there like a snapshot in time. Everybody. Whether they're alive or dead, whether they are known to you or unknown to you, whether they were good or bad, whether they were kind or unkind, whether they were well or unwell, sane or insane, successful or unsuccessful, whether they were loved or unloved, whether they lived to a long, long age or whether they left too soon. Everybody is there. And as you walk towards the front of the gathering, somewhere near the front, in exactly the right spot, you see a bright, shiny mark on the floor. And you know instinctively that this is your place. And this is your exercise. So you've got a choice to make. Maybe it feels like the perfect place for you to step into. And if you're ready, you can do that and stand in your family system. And maybe tonight it's not. And you just get the feeling that you're here to observe your spot and that you're going to learn from what that feels like to look at it. If you are standing in your spot, then you can feel what it feels like to have your parents behind you. And they can be behind you at whatever distance you choose. This is your exercise. Maybe they're really close. Maybe they even have their hands on your shoulder. Or maybe they're much further away and there's plenty of the space of the woodlands between you. And if there are more than just two parents, they'll all be there. Maybe you have parents that biologically created you, and then you have different parents that brought you up. They're all there. Maybe there are step parents. But if you are in the system, you can feel them behind you. And if you're looking at the system, looking at your spot on the ground, you can see where everybody fits in. You can see or you can feel where your siblings are if you have any, or partners if you have any, or children if you have any, maybe grandchildren. This is just a time to notice how it feels to be in that place or to view that place. And you notice that it feels safe and it feels calm and it feels controlled because it's just a snapshot in time that you've created. And whether you're in your spot in your family system, surrounded by your family, or whether you're observing that and noticing how it all fits together, you just start to hear this noise from your ancestors way, way back. And the noise is the sound of one of your ancestors turning to their neighbour and saying the words, "You belong." And it isn't emotional or even necessarily joyful. It's just factual. It's a nod to the person on their left and their right and confirming, you belong, you belong. And you notice that this gets passed around the system like a wave as more ancestors tell each other, you belong, you belong. Whoever they are, whatever their story, whatever they contributed, whatever they took, they are all being told by each other, you belong. It's almost like a set of Christmas lights. As people are being told that they belong, their light clicks on. They take their place, and the energy gets stronger, warmer, lighter. The message being passed on and on and on, people being lit up as they receive confirmation that they belong. And eventually, you know that the message gets to you. And whether you're in that system or whether you're observing that system, somebody tells you you belong. And you might want to notice who that is. Maybe it's a parent. Maybe it's a grandparent. Maybe it's an ancestor that you don't even know. But you receive that, maybe from multiple people who want to tell you you belong. And whether you're in the system or watching the system, you pass that message on. And just notice who that information is going to. Who do you say you belong? Maybe you know them well. Maybe they're a child, a grandchild. Maybe it's multiple people. But just take your time in your system, whether you're in the middle of it in your right place or whether you're still just watching it from the edge. Just take your place in passing that message of belonging on. And as the sound of the words, you belong, you belong, you belong, as that starts to fade, as everybody in the system has received the message and passed on the message, just take a moment to take it all in from wherever you are in that system. Just feel the truth of belonging, no matter what the cost to you or the system. Just notice, does it feel easy to belong in this system? Or does it feel like absolute torture? Are you standing on that spot and desperate to get off it, even though you know you have to belong? That is your place. Maybe it just feels strange. Does it feel maybe comforting? Maybe it feels settling. Maybe it feels resourcing. energizing, confusing, conflicting. Just notice. And as you take it all in and you notice how it feels, remember that you can always come back here. You can always build on this feeling. You can always learn how to accept it and allow it. You can reconfirm it. You can come back, or you can surrender to it. You can thank it. So now you know that although this will always be the truth of your family system, you can step out of yourself in that moment. And maybe as you leave this clearing, you've left a part of you in that system where they belong, on that spot. As you move away, you view it from afar, and you realize that you're stepping away from the clearing in the woodland and you're back on the path out of the woods. You know that that system will always be there, imprinted, the snapshot of your family system. And as you turn your back and move through the woodland path, you make a commitment to yourself to take only what is useful from this exercise and to leave everything else in the woods, whether woods, leaves, soil and sun can turn those things into other beautiful elements. You don't need to take anything with you that doesn't serve you on your journey forward. And the path takes you out of the woodland, and with every step you can start to bring a tiny bit of movement back to your fingers and your toes. And you can have a few deep breaths. And there's absolutely no rush at all. But when you're ready, you can open your eyes and just take a moment to notice how you feel. You might want to spend some time capturing anything important in your journal, either now or later. And then just fully bring yourself back. And notice any feelings that are settling in you, or anything that you took from that exercise. There's so many elements of your family system that were available for you to interact with in that visualization. It was designed to absolutely link you up with the truth of belonging, but there's lots of other stuff in there. We can't really interact with our family system without lots of stuff coming up. So be kind to yourself. And if there is anything that does come up, maybe there was tricky things that came up that you would like to not have to deal with just on your own, then that is what our WhatsApp group's for. And you can get hold of Kate and I individually as well. Of course, you don't have to post it in the group. And also, it might be that it has raised something that occurs to you either now or in the days to come that is worth looking at in a constellation. And obviously, that's what community constellations is all about.